SynthStories starts right now.
Am I overreacting? I deleted my Netflix profile and now my family is upset. I, female 18, have been using my family's Netflix forever. We've had it split up into mom, dad, and kids profiles. Years ago I started using my mom's because that one allowed me to watch movies, and I was like 16 so it was pretty appropriate. A while ago I made myself my own profile thinking for the future to be able to split stuff off and organize it more responsibly. Honestly, I used it for a couple months but it annoyed me so bad how it didn't remember where I was at in my shows since I'd been watching on the other profile. Last year mom kicked me off her profile because it was recommending her anime and rom-coms she wasn't interested in since I was using it. So she then made me a new profile, with my name, and told me to use it. So I did, and I've been trying to set up and sync everything across ever since. Today, I deleted my old profile, my name, created by me, to use the new one. Now my sister, 13 female, threw a tantrum because she'd been using my profile and it's not fair to her that I deleted all her watch history. Keep in mind she never told me she was using it, it's never been mentioned, it's just a profile in my name that I created. My parents are on her side, saying that I should have checked with her first and that I can't make decisions on other people's behalf. I don't think I did anything wrong here though. It's her responsibility to be aware she's using someone else's profile and if I decide to delete it I will. If she told me I would have just told her to use it and it would all be avoided too. Also, it's a Netflix profile. To me it's not that serious. Like you can make yourself one and watch your shows. AIO though that I don't think I did anything wrong here.
Am I the a-hole for not supporting my brother and his girlfriend's pregnancy? My brother, 17, and his girlfriend, 16, recently found out they're having a baby. They immediately expect my parents will let them move in with the baby when it's born. We live in a small 2-bedroom house. My mother is disabled, so I live with them to take care of her. My brother recently brought up that they'll be taking my room when the baby comes. They did not ask me nor my parents about this, and said I will be fine sleeping on the couch. My brother makes £150 a week and wants my parents to pay for mostly everything the baby will need. He spends most of his salary on weed, which I know he won't stop even when the baby is here. I brought up abortion and they flipped out, saying I was selfish for not wanting to support my niece. I do not care about this baby. I do, however, care about my mother, and this is putting a lot of stress on her. We also have a dog that does not like kids. They want us to get rid of her. We refuse to do so. They are lazy and struggle with simple tasks. They aren't fit to take care of a child. Am I the a-hole?
My 30 female, ex-husband 34 male, is obsessed with me. How do I handle this with minimal damage? This is an interesting situation I'm having. My 30 female, ex-husband 33 male, and I have been divorced for about 6 years. I am remarried, and we will call him B, is still dating the woman he cheated on me with. I have full custody, all legal and medical say, of our kids, and he has visitation on weekends. B and I were together for about 12 years, married for 7. I met him when I was 15, he was 18, and had gotten pregnant with our first at 16. The entire relationship was abusive, and he cheated with mainly his current GF. When I asked for a divorce, he was blindsided. He had been making me sleep on the couch for the previous 6 years. Anyways, this brings us to now. I am remarried and doing pretty good. I have a good job, I have a social life, and those awful days are over. Trauma still lingers, of course. Co-parenting isn't the easiest. He tells his GF in front of my kids how I'm the most beautiful woman in the world and how he will always love me. Last night, I am scrolling through social media when I see a suggestion. It is an account with my first name and my maiden name. I think, that's weird. Since my maiden name isn't common, I click on the profile. The account has a provocative anime pic and has only one friend, my ex-husband's girlfriend's profile. Now, let me go ahead and preface this by letting you all know that back when we were married, he would make fake accounts of me and pretend to be me to sex females. He tries saying it's not him, but he reported the account, and 5 minutes later, it was removed. Then he tried saying it might have been his sister, who has also made fake accounts of me in the past on Snapchat. I didn't bother explaining that reporting accounts don't get them removed that quick, and he just outed himself. Instead, I tell him it's best if we end the conversation because I was feeling furious and nothing good would come out of talking. Now, it can't handle it. I don't know if I should bring it back up and discuss it, or if I should drop it. My husband says it's creepy and he stands by whatever I decide. I feel like what he did was very invasive. I felt weird seeing the profile. Dirty, if that makes sense. We haven't really talked since, except for him to dip out on his weekend, which I believe is because he's embarrassed to face me. If this was you all, how would you all react? I don't know if doubling down is the right thing to do here.
Am I the a-hole for arguing with my sister about not wanting to watch her kids? This is going to be a long read, so get comfy. For a bit of a backstory, my sister, 25, she has 2 kids, 3 and 4, and a boyfriend who is 55. My sister has a history of making strange decisions. Well, actually, the current boyfriend is not the one who she had kids with, that was her previous boyfriend who would be around 24 to 25. But he ended up injuring one of the kids, and is now in prison. And for whatever reason is now dating a guy closer in age to my dad than herself. She also has a record of just making one of the family members watch her kids while she works, for absolutely nothing in return. My brother, who is now working out of state, used to have every single weekend taken up by my sister, to watch her kids, for at least the better part of 2 years. My brother is a welder and used to work 10-hour days, 5 days a week, pretty much as a laborer for the company he used to work for at the time. He would come home exhausted, and on the weekends you'd think he would spend the day resting, but no. He's at my sister's place. And on top of him being exhausted, he's absolutely underqualified. There was one time where my sister didn't tell my brother that the kids knew how to open doors, and my brother fell asleep. They ended up opening the door and getting outside. It wasn't until the neighbor noticed them outside that a police officer came and woke my brother up and told him what happened. And then it happened again. In the same day. Needless to say, my brother was pissed. But he didn't say anything to my sister about it, as he's the kind of person to stay quiet about things that annoy him. But when that person isn't there, he then talks about how he doesn't like it. He would come home and complain to my dad about how he just can't do it anymore. To note, my brother and my dad are all car enthusiasts. Me and my brother have our own project cars. Mine is 1990 Miata, and my brother's being a 1990 Ford F-350. This will come into picture later. I feel bad for my brother because he has his Ford F-350 that he really enjoys working on. He's got a lot to do on it, but he wants to make it a perfect work vehicle to travel around and work for different companies. I completely respect that and wish the best for him, but he hasn't been able to do it because my sister was just hogging all of his free time. And as of 2 months ago, my brother started working out of state. He has a beater Ford Ranger he bought just to get around, and so now that my sister can't beg my brother to do it, now I come into her ball game. I, 18, am still in high school, have university ID like to get into, and have my own project car that I still have quite a lot of work that needs to be done. I would also like to mention that I have a horrible time being around kids, and not sure if it's a phobia or anxiety or whatever, but I have awful anxiety and intrusive thoughts whenever I'm around young kids. One day my sister messaged me if I'd like to go eat somewhere. It seemed nice and well, so I ended up going. And we had this long conversation about how hard her life is and that she doesn't have anybody to help her, and she just kept asking if I would watch her kids the next day, over and over and over and over. I kept reasoning that I just don't feel responsible enough to watch them, but she just kept pestering, over and over, until I caved in and just said, just this one time. I ended up staying at her place from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. Doesn't seem too bad, but it was absolutely grueling for me. I felt so on edge and just my heart racing the whole time. I kept worrying that something awful would happen. I didn't want to tell my sister that, but I was just glad the day was over. But not 2 weeks later, my sister shows up at my place. I live with my parents still, at around 8 p.m., and said the next day I would have to watch them until 1 p.m., and I sat there, dumbfounded, as she said I wouldn't have to watch them again. And that morning I woke up to my sister nonstop calling me just to wake me up, and of course I had a headache, was also starving, and the kids were already awake. And I barely had any energy to get up and move around, and for reference the kids normally go into my brother's room, since he isn't there, but since my brother works in all sorts of construction/maintenance/ etc., he's got all sorts of equipment, one of them being a marker for construction zones, and the 3-year-old, female, got a hold of the marker and started drawing everywhere. I got pissed. I told my sister that I was pissed that I was just lied to, and she absolutely blew up on me about how it's not her fault that she had to make me do it because her life is apparently so unpredictable. Anyway, we got into this huge fight. She was fighting tooth and nail and insulting everyone in the family, and trying to turn everyone she knows against me. Luckily for me, it is very, very hard for words to upset me like that, so it just ricochets off of me. After that, she came over, picked them up, and left. I do believe that from this argument I got sick, as I woke up the next day with a headache and sore throat, so for about a week I just felt awful, and right as soon as I feel better, my sister boyfriend just shows up, and drops the kids off here, without saying a single goddamn word, and just leaves. I was absolutely pissed. Not only because I wasn't notified, I am not qualified, but I'm also sick. My dad was there, but he was also sick from something else, and so again, another argument erupts, and again she is just trying so hard to turn everyone against me, even trying to say that my brother, the same brother that my sister was just harassing, hated me and didn't want to talk to me, and purposefully started working out of state, to be away from me. There's so much more that I could add on to this post, but I believe it's long enough. I appreciate anybody who took the time to read this, and to anybody who may have a suggestion, or hopefully maybe even a solution.
Am I the a-hole for breaking up with my boyfriend after he set me up for a loyalty test? Original post February 24th, 2025. I, 25 female, have been dating my boyfriend, 28 male, for a year now. Our relationship has been amazing until one day. He decided to put me through a loyalty test for a YouTube video. The entire test felt completely real. The entire time, I didn't flirt and made it clear I had a boyfriend, despite the decoy's multiple advances. Then, all of a sudden, the whole crew came out. My boyfriend, in particular, was smiling and happy. When the YouTuber told me that this was a loyalty test and that I had passed, I sat there confused and stayed silent. When my boyfriend tried to hug me, I pushed him away and walked off. I was completely shocked and humiliated. I knew this was going to be on YouTube, so I didn't want to react the way they probably wanted me to, yelling, crying, making a scene. I simply said, "The relationship ended the minute you decided to put me on a loyalty test." My boyfriend tried to stop me, saying I was being dramatic and that I had no reason to be mad since I had passed. That just made me angrier. And all I wanted to do was go home. The next day, he called wanting to talk in private, which I agreed to. However, he had already told his friends, our mutual friends, and my own family about the situation. During our conversation, he would call them or pull up their text messages so they could back him up. They all said I was overreacting and that I should be happy because now that he knows I would never cheat, we can finally settle down and be together. Yes, I love him and have considered that in the future, but I felt completely invalidated. In my opinion, loyalty tests are a lose-lose. Either you cheat or you don't, but either way, it proves that your partner doesn't trust you. I was completely confused because I thought I had given him zero reason to doubt me. So, when I asked him why he did this, he admitted that it was only because his ex had cheated on him multiple times in the past with her coworkers. This meant he had lied, because he had told me their breakup was mutual and drama-free. Also, I never realized he had trust issues because I'm such a homebody and work from home. Now that I recently got a new job and was leaving the house more and meeting new people, it put me in the same situations and settings his ex had been in. At the end of our conversation, he asked if we were breaking up, and I told him I needed space. That was 2 days ago, and I'm still being bombarded with people saying I'm being irrational for being mad about this. The only thing he has said in those 2 days was that because I passed, I shouldn't even worry about the video coming out since they only post the fails. As if that was my concern. Maybe I'm overreacting, but I need some outside opinions because everyone around me is making me feel like I'm crazy for being upset. Too long. Didn't read. My boyfriend secretly put me through a loyalty test for a YouTube video. I stayed faithful. But I felt blindsided and humiliated when it was revealed. Now his friends and my family say I am overreacting and should be happy I passed. While I feel completely invalidated, am I wrong for feeling this way? So, am I the a-hole for breaking up with my boyfriend over this? Update February 26th, 2025. 2 days later, I took a lot of y'all's suggestions, including showing my friends and family the Reddit post I made. Most of them backtracked once they saw the full context of what happened. His brother told me he wanted to talk because there was something he needed to get off his chest. He admitted that my ex had been planning this for a while. Not just for the video. Last night, we spoke, and she, his ex-girlfriend, told me she had heard about what happened through a mutual friend. She reached out to tell me her side of their breakup. Their relationship ended because she found out he was the one who cheated multiple times with multiple women. When she confronted him, he tried to flip the script on her. She also revealed that during their relationship, he recorded a lot of their conversations, lied about where he worked, including his actual salary and position. When she got caught looking at his phone, he completely flipped. He broke up with her on the spot, claiming she didn't trust him, even though he was the one being unfaithful. This morning, she still went ahead and told him everything I'd said and what I had found out. He started blowing up my phone with explanation texts. After an hour, he apologized, admitted he was sorry, and that he was only projecting his past traumas onto me. I didn't buy it and blocked him. You would think that after all of this, people would see my side. But some of his friends are still messaging me saying I ruined his career by not letting him post the video. Thanks to everyone who gave their opinion. It was incredibly eye-opening, and I'm glad I'm moving on from this mess. I'm officially single and staying that way for a while.
Am I the a-hole for giving my oldest child the smallest bedroom 20 years ago? At the time of this incident, I, 50 female, was 32, my oldest Sam was female 12, first marriage, middle April female 6, and youngest Darren male 4, second. We moved into a house with 4 bedrooms, upstairs, large master and medium-ish bedroom, main level, large and small bedroom. The small bedroom was in the back corner of the house, and since April had a quiet voice we wanted her where we could hear her easily. Sam didn't want the small bedroom, it was quite small, and thought this was unfair as she was much older, so we compromised by turning the small bedroom into an office. The girls shared a room. April was easily hurt and Sam was only with me on weekends, so it didn't even make sense for her to take up a whole room all the time. Sam was unhappy with this arrangement from the get-go. It didn't help that she kept butting heads with her sister. April would push buttons, Sam would react, and it would turn into a sobbing mess. April, being 6, would also sometimes make kid mistakes like doodling in Sam's books, and this would cause Sam to melt down even when I tried to fix it. Sam complained that April had a larger bed than her. We had gotten a bunk bed for the room, and April was safer on the bottom bunk as she could have fallen out of the top. So Sam had the top bunk, which was smaller than the bottom. Also, again, she was only there on weekends. I explained the reasons over and over again. She wasn't here enough to warrant taking away my office, and I needed to be able to hear April. I told her if she spoke to her dad and started living with me during the week, we could turn the office into a bedroom. She agreed, after many of these discussions, and came to live with me. She got the small room and boom, angry again. She expected the big room. She never told me, but I learned she was also angry as her very high-quality mattress sat on the floor for a while. It was a very good mattress and a frame would have taken up valuable space. She stayed with me for about 2 years before going back to her dad's pretty much full-time. No matter what I did, she wasn't happy. I haven't heard from her in a couple years. We had a big fight. She wouldn't tell me why she was so cold with me all the time, then she stopped talking to me. I found an old journal she'd forgotten at my house a few years back and I hadn't read it, but very recently I missed her so much, I did. There was a lot, mostly rants and notes and some journal-type stuff. She wrote a rant about how I'd used a bedroom to manipulate her into living with me, how awful it was, and how it felt like a prison cell with just a chunk of foam on the floor to lie on and a little desk in the corner. She makes it sound like I tortured her with an expensive mattress and her own room, which I didn't even need to give her. Lots of siblings have to share rooms for years. I'm close to the limit, so I guess now I just need to ask, am I the a-hole? Did I go too far in not giving her the room she wanted?
Am I the a-hole for telling my husband I married him and not his kids? I met my husband 13 years ago. We have a 10-year-old son together that has Down syndrome and I have a 14-year-old daughter from a previous relationship. When we met, my husband had been dating this barfly who claimed she was pregnant with his kid, but I knew better, so I told him that it wasn't his and how she was a whore. He ended up breaking up with her and then we got close and ended up getting married a year later. He has 3 kids from a previous relationship. A daughter who lived with his mother that he had in high school and 2 sons from a previous marriage. Anyways, the 2 boys stayed with us, but they were constantly going back and forth to court and using so much money. The mother of the kids told him that if she could have custody of the youngest son, that he could have custody of the middle son and the daughter that lived with his mother. I told him that if we went to court one more time that I was leaving because I couldn't handle it, so he agreed and gave her custody of the youngest son. The middle boy moved in with us, but he didn't want to change school, so his dad said since I drove my kids to school that I could drive his son. This worked for a while, but it was just too much trouble, and when I told my husband this, he let middle son go live with his mother and his daughter because she went to the same school. A couple years later, after oldest daughter moved out, she had to leave her home and needed somewhere to stay. She was married and had a 2-year-old boy. They came to stay with us a week and I couldn't take it. The 2-year-old would cry and would wake up my disabled son. She wouldn't help me clean or cook and just hid in the room until she went to work and then would go back to the room when she got home. I told my husband either she left or I left. He told her this and she said, "You've chosen her over all of your kids, and when you end up alone then you remember the choices you made." They argued for a while and she ended up moving into a hotel until they had enough to get another place. She left and now when we see them we ask if we can watch her kids and she says no because she doesn't trust us and that he made his choice and now he can live with it. She's very cold to us and will frequently mention how she lost her brother and never sees him because of my husband, and now middle son is acting the same way, saying that I'm a horrible person and that I made him chose me over them. I'm the mother of his child, he should choose me. My husband was crying in the bathroom the other day about how he missed his kids and how he messed up and blamed me for the whole thing, so I told him I married him and not his kids, and that his kids aren't dead, they are still alive and he can still see them when they are at his mother's house. He then cried about youngest son, but he was only 2 when we met, so he couldn't have had a close bond with him anyways. Am I the a-hole? I feel like we are headed toward a divorce and I don't want that.
Am I the a-hole? I told people my ex was abusive. I, 22 male, used to be in this relationship with a girl. She was pretty mentally unstable in a bunch of ways. The relationship was toxic TBH. When we would play fight, she would get extremely excitable, like a kid, and just wouldn't know when to stop. I'd say stop, but she would take things too far. It was very annoying. On occasion, I'd say stop, and she'd keep going, and it would honestly hurt. Like, not leave bruises hurt, but like, we were play fighting, so there was physical contact. I brought it up with her, and it kind of seemed like she felt pretty guilty about it, but things didn't change. It kind of just felt like she had no self-control. AITA I, she has ADHD, so I know that can affect impulsivity, but still. We argued a lot towards the end of the relationship, and TBH, I ended up cheating on her with someone else for a couple months. Not my proudest moment, but the relationship was not in a good place, and I just did it. Things were easier and actually felt normal with the other girl. She found out about the cheating, and we broke up. When she found out, I sort of just didn't react. I just wanted to be done with the relationship. She didn't have a place to stay at the time. She was 2 weeks away from moving into her new place, but I knew she could afford a hotel or go back to her family. So when she asked to stay till she moved in, because she was planning on moving out, I said no. She tried to guilt trip me about it, but I didn't really care. I think the fact I was so disconnected and ready to go really fucked with her head, as well as the whole cheating thing, and I think she wanted a way to make me feel bad. So she said she was going to tell my work colleagues and friends that I cheated on her if he didn't tell them myself. I'm not going to lie, I think she also wanted me to tell them because she somehow knew I was going to lie. Edit for clarity, I leave out the cheating part when telling my friends about the breakup and just say it was because of the fighting, but it's my friends and it wasn't going to affect her. Also, I'm not going to lie. When she came by to pick up her stuff with a friend, I kind of just blanked her. I know it upset her, but I didn't really care. I just moved her stuff without speaking to her and put it in the front of my apartment block as she watched and put it in her friend's car. At some point, she called me on my phone. I can't remember what she said, but I said I was going to throw her stuffed toys out the window or something. She got really irritated at that and swore, saying something like, "Why the fuck would you do that?" I thought she was on speaker and her friend was with her. That honestly really pissed me off, and I said something about how I was sorry and that I didn't want her to hurt me because I knew the guy would be listening. Turns out she wasn't on speaker. Yeah, I know I shouldn't have said that. I was just angry. Going back to the friends and telling them I cheated thing. All my friends are female, and I just didn't want my friends to see me differently. The fact the relationship was so toxic didn't exactly help. Anyways, I kind of told my friends I cheated, but also that she was abusive. Do I really think she was abusive? Kind of. I knew the way my friends would interpret it wasn't really 100% accurate to the situation, but it was kind of true. She did some pretty fucked up things. Maybe retrospectively, I kind of exaggerated things, but still, like some things were fucked up, others were abusive or borderline abusive, and some were just toxic. Like, I don't feel bad at all telling people she was abusive, because I don't want them to think of me differently about the cheating. I don't know how, but she found out or knew I told people she was abusive and was pretty upset about it. That was a while ago. Since then, she kind of apologized a bunch of times about the play fighting stuff and taking things too far. I don't like talking about it and just say it's fine. It didn't bother me that much at the time, but that is by definition abuse, right? Like, even if she never wanted to hurt me, she still kind of did. If this really violated the no violence rule, sorry. If it does, I guess I thought it's kind of borderline. So fair enough if it does. Edit 2. Just to be clear, the situation with the play fighting was initially, it started as a thing we both did, but she would take it too far. At some point, the timeline is a bit fuzzy cause TBH, it was a while ago. We had a convo about it, and she apologized and said it wouldn't happen again, but it did. By the way, the thing I had an issue with was when SHE would start it, and I literally wouldn't engage. I guess I call it play fighting because she was giggling and trying to make a game out of it. Basically, she would literally start hitting me and think it's funny. At first, it wouldn't hurt, but sometimes she would take it too far and it would hurt. Like, how is that not abuse?
Am I the a-hole expecting my husband to cook for us while he's not working? My husband broke his ankle and had to have surgery. He has a cast for now and crutches to get around the house and has been home less than a week. Normally we either take turns cooking or cook together when we both get home. But since he'll be home for a number of weeks, I told him he should be covering dinner for us. He said he'd do what he could. The first day all he made is freaking grilled cheese and soup. Stuff like that doesn't really constitute a meal, or he orders takeout. Once in a while, okay, but it's been like that ever since he's been staying home. Yesterday I asked him to do something with more sustenance, like a baked dish with a side salad. Protein and vegetable sides. My husband argued and said he didn't think he'd be able to do something like that because he's supposed to be staying off that foot as much as possible for the time being. And he brought up being in pain. I totally get the pain, but I reminded him that there were ways to make a good dinner even with a broken ankle. He has his crutches, could bring a stool or rolling chair into the kitchen, or get everything to the table and sit to do prep. Instead, he made chili in a slow cooker and had pre-made salads delivered from the store. I wound up making something for myself instead and told him how I was getting fed up with him disregarding my wishes and feelings. He told me I'm being bossy and need to cut him so slack and he'd go stay with a friend. He's been there a whole day and was short with me when I've called to get him to talk about this. I don't think I'm asking too much from him to just cook dinner since he's home, but am I the a-hole? Edited. Okay, I get it, I'm the asshole here and the daughter of Satan. Some of you are very protective of your soup and sandwich combo. You have at it, I just can't stand it because ate too much of it growing up. I will take today and tomorrow off and apologize to my husband and do some nice things for him. I'll talk to him about having one of our family members come and help me with meal prep. I sincerely thought sitting on a chair was a viable option since he'd be off his foot, guess I was wrong. Edit 2, yes, I said asking help for meal prep. I work 12-hour days on a loading dock, most my days are on my feet and helping lift stuff or walking around doing inventory and other such tasks. It's physical, it's exhausting, spending a chunk of one of my 2 days off to do meal prep and everything else in the house, yes, I need help somewhere. It's wonderful that some of you or your partners are able to do it all, but that's you, and not everyone is the same. And some of y'all acting like I'm the only one that likes a clean house. We both do, he's worse about it than me, especially with cat and dog hair. Meaning I'm also cleaning things that are making him anxious at his request so he won't be tempted to get up and do it.
I, 34 male, have ignored my wife's, 34 female, emotional needs for 15 years. I'm a 34-year-old Dutch guy. I've been together with my wife, 34 female, for almost 15 years. We have lived together almost all of that and been married for almost 9 years. We have 2 children under 6 years old. I've cognitively known for a long time that other people have feelings and emotions, and those will influence the way they act. However, it wasn't until some time over the past couple weeks or so was that I genuinely understood what that means, at least in a small part. This came to be because when I feel sad/tired/with AVU, I will sometimes be crabby or otherwise act unpleasantly towards people around me. I then expect those people to understand that I'm just not feeling well in that moment and expect them to give me space to act like that without judgment. However, I recently realized I do not grant the same liberty to other people, most of all my wife. This realization came when I was doing something on the floor in the hallway of our house. My 5-year-old needed to unpack his school lunch bag, and to do so he had to pass by me, but I effectively blocked the path. He told me to get out of the way, and did so in a bit of an annoyed fashion. I was about to tell him off for talking like that when I caught myself and realized that he was talking like that because he'd had a long day at school, now had to do a chore he had no interest in doing, and on top of that I was blocking his path. In his stead, I would also have been annoyed and short in my way of talking. So instead of telling him off, I just moved over and let him pass. At that point, something clicked in my mind. I have been expecting other people, my wife most of all, to give me space and understanding without me ever returning the favor. Although I'm still trying to come to grips with this whole thing and the consequences, just logically speaking, this must mean I have always neglected my wife's needs and emotions. I know she has often told me I was doing so, but I never really understood why, because my answer would usually be something along the lines of, I'm trying my best, and also I always get your drinks for you from the fridge, so really I don't understand why you can't see how hard I work. Not exactly in those words, obviously, but that was mostly the gist of it. There's a lot more that I couldn't possibly explain in a single post like this, but suffice to say our relationship is not in a good place right now. My wife has effectively lost all hope that I am capable of change, growing, or understanding, and frankly, I cannot blame her. This does mean that discussions about this topic are inherently emotional and difficult, and if she gets upset during an emotional discussion, which she should be allowed to do, I have a tendency to panic, shut down, or argue against her emotions. None of those things are helpful. So really what I am struggling with and what I could really use some advice for. How can I explore and understand the consequences of my neglecting her over the past decade and a half? How can I learn more about my wife's needs without flooding her with a bunch of questions she most likely won't know the answer to in a bite-sized package? How to have a productive conversation about this without becoming overwhelmed, panicking, or arguing? How can I support my wife in dealing with all this? What resources are available for me to learn more about all this? I'm aware that this is not going to be an overnight fix, and to undo 15 years of damage may very well take another 15 years, but I would still really like to do whatever I can to improve the situation. I just don't really know what. I'm also acutely aware that I cannot change the past, which is one thing, but I'm not really sure what to do to positively affect the future and hopefully heal a relationship. Potentially relevant background info. Last October, I was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder as well as ADHD. I'm currently working with a psychiatrist to medicate the ADHD, but not yet at a point where the meds work to their full potential. I'm on a waiting list for therapy for the ASD part. My wife also has been diagnosed with ASD as an adult, albeit much earlier than me, around 22 to 23 years of age. We suspect she probably also has ADHD, but she hasn't been formally diagnosed with that yet.
Thanks for listening. Like, comment, and subscribe.